All right, so we're going to a little swimming spot here called the Devil's Hole, which apparently this is a new addition because there's this stair system getting down to it. They didn't allow it to be accessible to people before because it was a little too steep. And this looks like a epic spot. Wow. So we've crossed the little creek there, and there's this trail that heads into the woods, so we just thought that we would wander through.
So when you look at things like this, you can kind of see how it was once a tree, and where it entered back towards the ground became soil again. And it's the whole premise of this guy, his work and his understanding of how to grow, is that we just take what's already fallen and we leave it. I thought about starting a little program called Leave the Leaves, because we have this tendency to want everything to be perfect, but the leaves are the nutrients.
Yeah, it's an important part of the cycle.
Yeah, and so the nutrients have to go back to the earth again, and when you strip it of its nutrients, it becomes barren and nothing grows anymore. So that's why, there's weeds, and it brings the nutrients back up from the soil and brings it to the surface.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
I mean, the trees are just an extension of the earth. That's what's growing them, is the water and nutrients and sunlight and everything going up into them. And then here it's just kind of merging back with the ground.
So about how everything's kind of like a spiraling up and then out and then back down.
What do you mean?
When you look at any kind of force of nature, it has this spiraling, just everything about it spirals. So sometimes you look at a flower. What is it? What's that one video? Thrive?
I've heard about that, but I haven't seen that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they talk a lot about this particular force and how in nature you see it with the spiraling of typhoons or hurricanes.
Yeah, or the shells. Nautical shells.
Yeah. So one day I was looking at a plant and I could see how it spirals, and so what happens is it grows right out of the middle, and then all the old leaves start spiraling outwards, and then they keep spiraling until they get older and older, and it's always the oldest ones are at the bottom, and it keeps shooting out through the middle, the top, and spiraling down.
Yeah, so it's kind of an infinite flow.
Exactly. And then the old ones are supposed to come back to the ground, and then once they touch earth, they turn back into the soil, which then goes down towards the roots and gets sucked up back through the middle and back through the spiral again. And so you could kind of tell how big a plant is by the root. You could tell where the roots stop is where the branches stop. So it's exactly perfect underneath the ground. It just keeps spiraling upwards. So
is this a particular type of plant, or
it's everything in life? It's that spiral. So if you look at, it's a kind of bad example, but you can kind of see how here's the middle of the plant, and each one of these nodes, it just keeps spiraling up. So this is the newest growth that's coming out, and then as you go lower, these are the older ones. You see how they're turning yellow down here and falling off?
Because the new ones came up through the middle,
and then these ones die and fall off, and they go back to the ground, and they turn back into the nutrients that it takes to recreate it and keep spiraling up. So I had this little download about it, and I just saw everything and how it had its own purpose. And it's the Back to Eden, the whole film and the theory behind it is that you leave things as they would be in nature. So you cover the ground with what you would find in nature. You're finding sticks, you're finding leaves, you're finding trunks and bark and everything. And it all turns back into the perfect consistency on the top. So sometimes things can be a little too hot. You hear of like compost, and it actually gets physically hot when things compost. And I remember when I had those piles in my front yard, they were 107 degrees, I swear. You can heat your water with these piles. So but also you keep all the heat of the decomposition at the surface, which actually is good because it keeps everything warm. If you live in a climate where keeping things from getting frostbitten is a problem and things like that. But
it's a protective layer.
It's just like skin. So what we do when we monoculture is that there's this whole idea of tilling the soil, and he talks about how God says, give me your yoke, which is the the harness that an ox would wear, and oxes were bred to, or created, and then man used them for their strength to be able to plow the soil. And there was all this energy going into plowing. And what they did is they just were ripping into the surface, the skin of the earth, and it creating more issues. So when you rip into the skin of the earth, you lose moisture. So he would do something like this. You could go into any of this. If you dig down into the ground, and you go about, here's a good spot. You just go a couple inches. You see how it's like black dirt, and it's also moist?
Yeah.
See the moisture in it, and how the higher up it stays dry. Well, it all protects and moistens what's underneath the ground. But actually, he was talking about how most food is very dehydrating for people. Because when you eat food from the earth that's grown right in this way, it's supposed to hydrate you.
And you were describing, I remember I forget if it was tomatoes
or
it was a cucumber that was just super juicy.
It wasn't like any other cucumber I'd ever tried.
Yeah.
It was an active stream of water pouring down my face. It was like cucumber water. Like if you took it, put it through a juicer, that's what was happening. It was just streaming. And it was a different experience than what I've ever had, and the flavor and just the abundance of how easy it was. And it's just like, oh, well, that's why. We're just supposed to leave it. We're supposed to allow it to give itself self-nutrients and protect itself. And if we leave it and let nature do what it does best, it'll thrive. And that's the whole idea. So
go with the natural flow instead of working against it.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a great way to create abundance for all people, and to be able to have food available for people. And and I also had this idea too, and I thought about all the food I'd eaten my whole life, and how each seed I just threw away. We just throw away our peels and seeds. We don't think about it. If I would have been meticulous and planted those seeds, how much food I could have right now. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
It's right there, ready to go. It just needs the right conditions. And this is just an epic spot back here.